You're listening to Switched On Australia, the podcast that tracks the opportunities and challenges of electrifying everything, everywhere. Switched On is brought to you by the publishers of Renew Economy, Australia's best informed, most read website focusing on the green energy transition, and is supported by Boundless Earth. Boundless Earth uses philanthropy, investment and direct advocacy to help Australia become a global force in a decarbonised world. Welcome back to Switched On Australia, the podcast where we explore the people, policies and projects powering Australia's clean energy future. I'm Anne Delaney. Thanks for tuning in. And I'd like to begin by acknowledging that Switched On is recorded and produced on the lands of the Arakwal people of the Buchelin Nation here in northern New South Wales. We pay our respects to elders past and present. Today, we're checking in on the most ambitious community electrification pilot in the country, Electrify 2515. Launched late last year, it's a bold collaboration between Rewiring Australia, Brighte and Endeavour Energy, with support from ARENA. The idea? Simple but powerful. Take one postcode, 2515, and help 500 households switch off gas and onto clean electric alternatives. Think heat pumps, induction cooktops, solar panels. The goal is to do it fast and to learn fast what works, what doesn't, and what it all means for households, tradies and the grid. The reality so far? 60 homes have made the leap, and the early lessons are already rolling in, from appliance costs and supply chain hiccups to how people are actually using smart energy tech in their daily lives. To dig into what the team has learned so far and what's coming next, I'm joined by John Buchelin, Operations Manager for the Electrify 2515 pilot at Rewiring Australia. To kick us off, I asked John to give us a quick snapshot of what Electrify 2515 is trying to achieve.
Yeah, so the pilot is essentially trying to bring forward a whole postcode area to electrify 500 homes in a really quick amount of time, so that we can basically identify the barriers and the challenges that everyone's going to come across as they electrify their homes and their transport over the next 10 years or so. And we wanted to do that in a community that was really engaged and really keen, but also in a concentrated area of the grid, so that the grid operators can actually work out how this is going to impact the poles and wires and impact their planning, and ensure that they're investing and making the right changes to the grid to make this work for everybody, and actually bring those costs down for everybody as well.
So a very important project. You've electrified 60 households so far. You're aiming to electrify 500. Tell me about those 60 households. Are they happy customers? Are they all off gas, and are they saving money and emissions?
Yes, I think it is mainly a broadly yes for everything there. So we've got 60 people participating. We had around 39 of those replace the gas appliance. So they've now been able to switch off gas, stop paying that daily fee, and basically then start to monitor their energy usage across their home, and then they can actually optimize that to then save money. We've been able to bring in also 13 tradies in the area. So that's been working with our project partner Brighte. So Brighte provide these kind of services in ACT and Tasmania around bringing tradies on to their platform. And so in the first 60 homes, we were connecting tradies and customers, and then letting them get 3 quotes, and then figuring out the right appliance, the right sort of changes they needed to make to their home. And so along the way there was lots of learning. So the big challenge for this program has always been it was going to be a retrofit. So we're looking at old homes, we're looking at homes that have had gas from day one. And so there's been lots of learnings around the different types of appliances, and also the different businesses and tradies out there that specialize in different things. So there's been definitely learnings from the tradies' point of view as well. But in 7 months, so it actually took a lot longer than we expected as well. We, as most projects, you're quite ambitious with timelines. Um, but we've now got, yeah, as you said, 60 homes who are off gas. They've all now got a home energy management system as well, so they can monitor their usage. And then we're actually now talking to those homes around, what is what do your bills look like now? Are you on the best retail deal? So it's definitely not a you've got off gas and now you're done. It's now, well, how do you actually make the most of that home?
Yeah, lots to talk about and unpack there. So it took longer than you anticipated. How long were you anticipating to do those 60 homes?
Initially, it was 4 to 5 months, and we did the first 10 homes, which was just to put in home energy management systems into houses that were already all electric, and we tried to find people who already had batteries as well, so that we could really stress test the home energy management systems that we wanted to try in the pilot. Um, so that took a little bit longer than expected, and then that sort of delayed the start to then do the remaining 50. But what we kind of the main real kind of delay really was just it's easy when you're kind of doing this one by one. We kind of advocate at Rewiring Australia, when the next thing breaks, make sure you're ready to electrify it. But this program is quite unique, where we've actually asked people to do three appliances at once in some cases. We actually had a couple of people who did three appliances plus got solar and a battery, which is not subsidised. Solar wasn't subsidised. Batteries were subsidised in the first stage, but we can talk about a little bit later some changes we're making, which in light of the cheaper home batteries program. Um, so there was, the team, we've sort of called it, the cognitive overload of so much to take on, that you wanted to, make sure you're making the right decision. Um, yeah, exactly. So that was probably, the key reason for the longer than expected. And and part of all of that too was just the customers, participants looking for more support as well. So, they were reaching out to the Brighte team, and they were also reaching out to the local team, which I'm part of. So we're the Rewiring Australia team is all local down in 2515. So we found ourselves getting actually a lot more involved in helping the participants than we anticipated, which was actually, excellent for the research, and that's really where a lot of our learnings have come from.
Yeah, because that's gonna have a big implication, isn't it, when you do scale up. Interesting that you were saying, so, concentrating on 3 appliances for a lot of people, and those appliances weren't the ones that they had, the existing appliances weren't necessarily kaput,
Yeah.
which is different to the messaging that Rewiring Australia does have. That, I would presume, means that people are even more conscious of some of the expense of these appliances because you're subsidising the appliances, but you're not paying for the whole thing, obviously.
That's right. Yeah. So most people got up to $1,000 off each appliance, and then lower income households got up to 1,500. So we did track, and I don't have the stat off the top of my head, but a lot of the appliances were quite old. It was sort of, I think majority was sort of 10 years or more. We did have one instance though where, best intentions, the participant wanted to do it, but when they saw the price and they had just bought the previous gas appliance quite recently, they sort of said, we would like to keep that. We think that's not quite the right move. Um, which we supported. We absolutely want everybody in the pilot to get off gas, but it might not happen right in this program right now. Um, so yeah, cost definitely became a barrier for some.
What was motivating most people to participate?
Yeah, so cost of living was what we kind of came in thinking this was going to be the biggest motivator for people to participate, and it definitely was a big part of it. But having an impact on the reducing emissions and contributing to climate solutions was actually the number one reason people applied. So, and that can be emissions. It can also be the health of your home as well, and then thinking about EVs and the overall kind of neighbourhood effect of the cleaner air. Um, that was a really big motivator for people. And the other motivator, which we kind of didn't capture in our application, but came through through the participants, and their engagement was just their kind of, generosity around wanting to have a bigger impact on, if I can go through this and I can figure out the lumps and I can, call out where this doesn't work and where it doesn't make sense, no one has to do this again. So
That's really interesting. So being part of something bigger than themselves, so to speak.
yeah, absolutely, and that was, yeah, that was really, quite. It was great to hear that, and it was, definitely something that, we took on board really early on, and we got together with people. We did sort of, as I said earlier, a lot more kind of face to face engagement with householders to really unpack, what is frustrating about this process, or what is it that's stopping you from doing this. Um, and we are very lucky here, and I think it's one of the reasons Arena supported this pilot is because we have a very engaged community, but also quite a, a number of retirees as well. And they've got the time and they've got the money in most situations. So they are the ones who are trying to figure out this process and make these decisions. And then their generosity to we even had a few come along to our recent event for the first 60 homes, and they sat at a table and did bill comparisons with people for an hour and a half, just volunteering their time, which is awesome.
Yes. That generosity of spirit that you talk about as a motivator for getting on board the project, do you reckon that's because it is potentially a more engaged community on some of these issues and that, the community is generally well informed? Do you think that cost of living will be a greater motivator for other communities?
Yeah, I think it will vary around different communities. I mean, we also had kind of the lead up of 2 years of engagement to this moment as well. So, and having someone like Saul Griffith coming to the area, bringing his research and bringing his views on how this can be such a big impact for communities, not just at the household level, but at the overall community level. Um, that really garnered a lot of support and a lot of interest. So, you know, I think in the past, you've spoken to Kristen McDonald's, who is our she's now sort of leading our strategic projects for Rewiring Australia, but uh, her work has really been about harnessing communities all across Australia to
Yes.
not necessarily get their own arena pilot up and running because it's quite a big
A
undertaking.
laborious process, I understand.
Yeah, but us sharing, exactly what we're learning here and, vice versa, there's lots of other communities doing similar things and getting similar, that similar levels of that generosity as well.
We mentioned that there are clearly lots of decisions to make when you're swapping over these machines. I was wondering, are most of these people who have the time to do the investigations and the research, etc., are they mainly retirees with a bit more time on their hands?
Yeah, look, anecdotally, I'd say yes. We did get a good cross section of families as well. So, but there's definitely the kind of cohort which I fall into, which is the busy kids under the age of 10, and there's just not so many hours in the day to do the work that's required to make some of these decisions. So I don't have the exact stat in terms of total applications, but yeah, there is definitely the sort of the different life stages that you do this, and we're trying to capture people at that sort of right life stage, but then also make it easier for them, and not everyone should have to do it the hard way.
Yeah, exactly. Did you learn anything about the best ways to help people make all of these decisions?
Yeah, so we found out, different people needed different levels of support. I definitely am. I'm someone who watches YouTube videos, and I search for sort of experts and people that have done this, that are sharing their knowledge. We've also developed fact sheets. Hard copies of things was very important. So we've got hard copies of all of our fact sheets that we take to our information sessions and markets.
Oh, I'm
Um,
heartened to learn that. Bring back the hard copy.
Yes, definitely. And when you're making a complex decision, you really got to take things out of the screen sometimes and write it all down. Probably also the other thing was actually hearing real stories from neighbours. So back to that kind of neighbourhood effect. one of our really keen volunteers and someone who was, in the first 10, who got the home energy management system. He's telling us that quite often he's having friends come over, or he's going to someone else's house and, just helping them, sit at the kitchen table and sort of troubleshoot the questions that they're getting, or the questions they're not getting answered from the research. So yeah, we're curating in the background, the best sort of way to direct people to different resources, and also then, create new resources for people as well. But we also want to, for the next 440 homes, we've already got people from the first 60 who are offering to do, something similar to that first volunteer, which is, have a sort of a kitchen table conversation. So come around to my house, see what I did, and then, we can tell you what we learnt, and then hopefully that makes your decision a lot easier.
The power of the kitchen table.
Absolutely.
John, you mentioned the home energy management system, which is a mouthful, and you in fact did have a bit of an issue with some of the electrification terminology. I mean, the wording clearly matters, but does it reveal that the technology itself still isn't user-friendly enough?
Yeah, it definitely presents a challenge. There's been 4 HEMS, or home energy management systems that we used in the pilot, and we did actually call them something different, which was a little bit of a risk, and we wanted to test that out, and we were calling them smart energy devices. So, essentially, it's something that goes into your switchboard, and it just gives you visibility of all the circuits, and you can see what your air conditioner is doing, what your cooktop's doing, what your solar's producing. It's interesting because people got that fully subsidized for being in the pilot, so it's not something they wanted or even necessarily knew existed beforehand. So we've got 4 in the program at the moment. We will need to reduce that down to help us scale for the 440. And, unfortunately, there's not kind of a clear one out there that's doing everything that works for everyone.
Oh, right. Okay. That's interesting.
Yeah, it depends on, what it can integrate with different batteries and different inverter brands, and then, basically what you can control as well. So, the monitoring is quite consistent, being able to see all your circuits and what you've used. But then being able to control a hot water system or an EV charger or a pool pump or pool heater, those big loads, it's still evolving. So there's lots of good tech out there if you've got the right appliances for it to talk to.
Yeah.
So making that puzzle fit is what we're trying to sort of overcome for the next 440.
Is that because there isn't something on the market which is a universal smart energy device, or is that an opening in the market for somebody to develop something like that?
Yeah, it's definitely something that people are trying to develop, and it all comes down to, the different kind of protocols that let these appliances talk to each other. And it's, again, it sort of comes down to what you've got, what that smart energy device can or can't talk to. So if you were starting from scratch, you could absolutely build something that talks to everything. But it just comes back to that retrofit challenge of, you bought the pool pump 10 years ago, and, that can't talk to something that is brand new because it doesn't have the same protocols, for example. So yeah, it's definitely there'll be a few compromises in some homes in terms of what we put in, but at the end of the day, the home energy management system was to firstly give the customer insights that they've never had before around how much electricity all of their different things they do in their house use, and then to then allow them to either automate or manually sort of control with timers how they can make the most of that either the solar they're producing, or getting onto retail plans that have, free electricity from 10 till 2. So make sure that your hot water system is timed from then, or make sure that your EV charger is only working on those hours. So that's what we'll be helping people throughout the pilot with the next 440 as well.
And those people who got a HEMS, a smart energy device, and it was working in the way that was useful to them, did that blow their minds that they could actually see this information?
Yeah, it was excellent. Yeah, we got out to quite a few houses and sat down at the kitchen table and, went through the HEMS with some participants, and it was great to for them just to be exposed to the air conditioner and how much it's using, and then to see the spikes of the EV charger coming on, and then making sure that that's timed at the same time that you've got the lowest electricity rates and things like that. So just giving people those insights just help them then take control, and eventually save money.
Because we are all eventually going to get one of these, aren't we?
Yeah, that's it. I mean, we've some people who've got batteries and solar are already getting a certain level of this, and you can also do this in a very low tech way. I bought a smart plug. Probably no breaking news, but I'm a bit of a energy nerd, and so I put that on my all my appliances over winter, just to see which what the dishwasher was doing, what the washing machine was doing, and what the heater was doing. So there's definitely other ways you can do it before you need to invest in a full sort of HEMS. So yeah, there's a lot of different angles you can take to then take control of your energy use.
Do you have any early data that tells us about how people are actually using those smart devices? Are households changing their behaviour, for instance, about when they use particular appliances, or is it more just monitoring their usage more passively?
It's not something we've got hard data on yet. We've got anecdotal feedback from participants that have come to sort of the events that we've been holding, just around that first piece around being visibility, knowing exactly what is working, and how much energy is being used by different appliances. Really, the main one that you can move around that people have been doing is the EV charger. So setting your EV to not charge during the peak period for if you're on a time of use rate. So, but that's kind of the next big thing for us, is to then uncover exactly what things can people be doing in the house to optimize. Preheating their house, starting the air conditioner early. The most obvious one, and most people, and I say that majority of people in the program now have moved their hot water, especially heat pump hot water, to being in the middle of the day. That's kind of the most obvious and easiest one to do with the timer. Um, but no, the next few months we'll be working with those 60 households to uncover more of that, and we are getting the data to start to come through. So we're getting now 3 or 4 months worth of data from the people who installed early in the program. And then throughout the program as well, we will be running sort of mini orchestration trials to see exactly how people interact with their HEMS, and then how much they can save when they do some optimization for those larger loads.
Because that, and I presume that you're only going to get this information in stage 2 when you've got a number of houses that have electrified. And I'm sure this is part of the reason that ARENA came on board to fund the project was, and that is to try and determine how household electrification can provide real data on what they call demand flexibility, changing the times at which we use these electrical machines, and how it's going to benefit the grid. I mean, it is too early to see what's happening on that front now, but that's where you're heading, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And so Endeavour Energy, who's our project partner, they've installed the first round of substation monitors. So that can give them, an even, more zoomed in view of exactly what's happening on the poles and wires and the transformers at the local level. And that is going to, really, once we've got 500 homes, we'll be able to see the real impact of at a street level, exactly what it would look like when, an entire suburb, or let's hope an entire country, does this over the next 10 years. And so when we finish our installations in 12 months' time, as you said, we then actually have a whole year of data that we will be collecting and then doing further analysis on to then produce that final report.
Now, you found induction cooktops were trickier to install than expected, and there were issues for both the consumers and for the installers. What kinds of problems came up on the ground?
Yeah, so cooktops, as we sort of talk about in the report, there's the hot water system is not really something you care too much about the shape or the color or the functionality. You just want it to heat water. Whereas cooktops, sit in your kitchen, which is the heart of the home. You use it absolutely every day. It's also something that most people would do when you do a brand new kitchen, or you would do it as part of a sort of a major renovation. So it's something that is happening amongst other changes in your kitchen. So when we start to take a gas cooktop out, that reveals the size of the bench top, being able to match that to a new induction cooktop that can fill that same space. Um, and then you've got sort of challenges around stone bench cutting and the risks around that, or the safety protocols around that, was sort of one of the first challenges we came across. And then that sort of then flows into where the electricity needs to get to somewhere where previously it was gas. So in one particular circumstance, where the tradies tried to come up with the most optimal way to get it through, but it involved some work to a home that the participant just wasn't willing to do. So that was definitely a barrier that they just couldn't overcome. Yeah, we definitely had really engaged participants on this topic, and some of them who were already struggling to do it before the pilot came along, and we were able to bring a bit of a cohort of specialists together to say, well, hang on, how can we actually solve this really interesting problem you've got here? So in the next stage, we want to take those learnings, build a sort of a triage process so we can get ahead of the potential complexities that can happen, and then work with the tradies around, well, is this a skill, or is this a function you need to build out and learn how to do? Or is there actually a specialist that we need to sort of bring in when certain challenges pop up? So we've started to bring those relationships together with the local tradies, and then we've also involved a retailer as well. So that's also going to give us insights to someone who wasn't part of the program for stage one, but if you went and bought a cooktop today, a lot of people would go to a retailer, and it's something that they've done quite a lot, quite often.
Mm.
So we want to bring those learnings into the pilot as well.
Well, one of the things also that the report mentioned was that an induction cooktop can involve 3 specialists to install it. You've got the electrician, you've got the plumber to turn off the gas, and you've got potentially a stone cutter. That would make things tricky, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that's it. And it comes back to that kind of business model opportunity we're trying to uncover here is, who's the right person to lead that? And then how do you make sure that, you get a situation where tradies are cooperating and working together. We even had a circumstance where someone had a fourth tradie involved, where they actually wanted sort of a specialist metal framing around the cooktop to sort of cover the gaps that they couldn't quite work out with the new sizing. So yeah, it's something we hope to see more often, because we often the cooktop is the last thing that you have left in your house. So it's not one of the massive energy savers like it is for the hot water system or the air conditioning. So it is sometimes the last thing that you need to do to get off gas. So the easier we can make that, the easier we can bring forward the challenges, and then have the solutions ready is gonna hopefully make people make the leap sooner.
You mentioned earlier that you had 13 tradies to assist with getting those 60 homes electrified. You're gonna need a hell of a lot more to roll out everything to 500 homes. Do you have that sort of number that you're going to need? And do you have the sort of tradies who are on board, engaged, and don't want to just change over like for like on your hot water, for instance, which would highly likely be a gas hot water system?
Yeah, so we again really fortunate to have a great network of tradies in the Illawarra, and with 13 was kind of it was definitely a lower number than we knew that we needed, but we also didn't want to bring in too many tradies for the first 60 homes, because we knew there wouldn't sort of be enough business to 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 bring to them in that short period of time. So we are expanding. We've got more sort of tradies that can do everything coming on board, and larger tradies or larger businesses. And we've also got specialists, so specialist hot water system tradies, so that we can do it in a way that works for the customer. So, in the first stage, it was a little bit limited to who they could choose because they had to have been, accredited to be part of the pilot. And so now in the main rollout, we'll be opening up, more options, more choice. But then it's also going to have a longer timeline as well. So we had a pretty fixed timeline for the first 60, and as part of the changes for the main rollout, we'll actually be extending the program by about 5 months. So we can then bring in the business for the tradies, so it's not overwhelming them. And also part of that is the cheaper home batteries program. Is we all know that there's quite a spike in interest in getting batteries. So bringing in specialists and bringing in more tradies will help kind of even out that workload for the area.
How are you ensuring that the installers and the tradies are aware of all the economic and climate cases for electrification? Do they have to sign up with a particular skills or knowledge or experience?
So Bright will accredit them through their program, like their platform. So there is obviously minimum kind of expectations on how they run their business, and the accreditations they have to be qualified to do this. But it's a really interesting question. We have a few tradies who are quite interested in this, and have read Saul's books, are really engaged on that kind of we are leading the the solutions for the climate challenge. And then there's other tradies who are just flat out doing all of the work, and probably haven't taken the time to think about the broader kind of impact they're having. We see that as a pardon me, a real opportunity. So, in the first 60, again, it was a little bit, let's get the program embedded, let's teach you what this is all about and how it works. But as this program evolves, we want to be doing more and more engagement with the tradies, and not just the ones in the program too. This is something that it's a knowledge sharing pilot, so that this can have impacts broader than the 2515 postcode. And so tradies like Brendan Lang, who you've had on from Get Off Gas, is doing great work out there, just spreading the word on exactly what tradies can be doing to make this easier for households. So we think also with the support and the resources we're developing it with the participant in mind, but we're also thinking, well, actually, how can this be given to an apprentice who starts tomorrow? And hey, here's something that was learnt when a postcode did this, 500 times in 12 months. And this is what you need to know day one, so that you can just get on the front foot early.
Now, batteries. I noticed that battery interest was very high amongst the people who've come on board so far, but cost was a barrier. So, and people were not necessarily following through with the battery. I mean, you did this report before the federal government subsidy for home batteries kicked in on July 1. Do you think things are going to change as a result of the rebate?
Yeah, we do. So as you said, we developed our subsidies and the program in sort of October, November last year. So well ahead of any sort of idea of a cheaper home batteries program. But it was something that we and many other organisations were advocating for. And we definitely saw in the 600 plus applicants we had, over 70% said they were interested in the battery. So the absolute interest and the motivation was there for the community to get batteries. And we shared that information with energy department, and we were really pleased to see that. Then that and many other as I said, organisations and advocacy from lots of different people to make that happen, so that everybody can actually benefit from that 30% off now. But as you said, in the program, we had 16 people in the first 60 were offered the chance to get the subsidies from us for the batteries, which for most people was $1,500. And then for low income, we had up to $4,000. And it was quite interesting. People had a little bit of lower expectations on what the cost might be, and it was only taken up by 5 people in the end. That was, again, around that kind of May period. People were actually installing batteries as the government sort of announced the election promise. there was also an element of a few people sort of waiting and seeing. So there was some people getting quotes at that sort of May period, and then they made the smart decision to go, I'm just going to pause here and just see what happens with the federal one, and then they were able to get that installed later and benefit from the federal campaign, federal rebate.
Can I look at some of the people who it's much harder to bring on the energy transition for, harder to reach, it's more expensive for them, and I'm talking about renters, people in apartments who often get left out of some of these conversations. What's the plan in the pilot to reach them in the next stage?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, as many people have said, if we don't bring everyone along on this whole electrify everything journey, it's not going to do what we need to do. So we were really deliberate in the way we designed the program, that it was absolutely open to landlords and renters to apply. We were encouraged in the early days. We had, two or three really keen landlords who did apply. At the moment, we're sitting at around sort of 15, which is, not a huge amount, but it's sort of kind of what we expected. It was good. It was going to be a challenge. The good news was, in the first 60, we brought two of those renters in, and they've now, electrified their investment properties. Also, the landlords, sorry, have electrified the investment property, which is really to the benefit of the renter. And so that was interesting to find, the motivations for that. One was actually a participant who was doing their own home. And then as a kind of a follow-up from doing their own home, they were like, well, actually, I should be doing this all at once with the investment property as well. So that worked out really well, because we were able to do that together with them as they did their own house and their investment property. And then, another unique situation where we had a landlord who will eventually, that their plan is to move into that house eventually. So there isn't a short-term benefit for them to do it, but that will be somewhere they live eventually. So there are some opportunities for some landlords to see those opportunities and take the chance now to do things like the cheaper home battery program. But at a policy level, we still think there is a big role and a big opportunity for change, for mandatory disclosure and also minimum standards, to actually then bring motivation for the landlords to make those investments.
And just a couple of final questions. How confident are you that you're ready to roll on scaling up to 500? Is there anything that you think really needs to be changed, whether or not it's with the structure of your pilot, or is there something more that you would like government, networks, industry to do that you've identified in stage one that would really help with the rollout?
Well, I think we've spent the last sort of few months with the RENA in the review, going through the changes we want to make. So I think, the lessons we've learned from the first 60 have absolutely shaped the next main rollout, which we did just announce this week to the community that we will be proceeding with the main rollout, which is super exciting. So we'll start again slowly. We have, Brighte has built a new platform, so a very improved platform in terms of what we did in the first stage. Then we need to onboard those new tradies as well. So again, we've found those challenges and we've found those hotspots, and we've tried to match up solutions that we want to stress test in the next couple of months. And then, from there, it's really about helping people through the financial barriers as well, and breaking it down, making it easier for them to make those decisions. And then we've actually, as I said, increased the support on the ground to then make that process easier and hopefully faster, so that we can get to that 500 mark within 12 months. So I think, in terms of what we need right now, we've already got the extra subsidies in place to then bring that financial upfront cost down. But the cheaper home battery program for everyone in Australia is brilliant. They've already got the solar under the small scale renewable energy scheme. So to see cooktops, hot water systems, and air conditioners, there are some state rebates involved, but to see those appliances, recognised at the same level as solar and battery, and even, go as far as to say your EV charger, which, we know will be in the end bi-directional and have a huge support to the network with those batteries on wheels. That's stuff that we already are advocating for, and we can see that would make it easier, not just for us, but for everyone across Australia.
Definitely. Yeah, we've got to keep pushing on that front, I think, John. John Buchelin, thanks so much for joining the Switched On podcast, and best of luck with the next stage of the pilot. It's such an important pilot because all this granular information is really obviously going to help us when we roll this out on a national scale. Thanks indeed.
No worries, Anne. Thanks for having us. And we're happy to share this information and knowledge through our website at rewiringaustralia.org. Or please reach out, and we're happy to talk to any community group that wants to learn more about what we've learned.
And John Buchelin is the Operations Manager for the Electrify 2515 pilot at Rewiring Australia. We'll keep following the pilot rollout as the next 440 homes make the switch, because there's a lot that the rest of the country can learn from this ambitious local experiment. If you're enjoying Switched On Australia, don't forget to like, follow or share the show. It really helps us grow. I'm Anne Delaney. Until next time, take care.